Okay, so in my last video, I only showed you like I think it was like 6 minutes of this, and it is an hour and 18 minutes long. But I do want you to hear this. This came out in 2018, and it is a exercise, like a scenario planning, kind of like Event 201. I tried to put the link in the last one, and it would not allow me to, so I might try to do it again if I can't. On my last video, I showed you what it was called and everything. So just listen to this. This is supposed to have been in 2018, and they're talking about the supplies, the surgical mask, shutting down the schools, every kind of public gatherings, and the in-person voting.
Domestic hospitals are failing due to lack of staff and supplies. Telework and social distancing measures are being encouraged by the CDC. Schools across the country are closed, and many public gatherings have been canceled. Public demand for surgical masks and respirators far exceed the available supply. National Guard units in multiple states have been deployed to provide security for pharmacies and hospitals.
He also talks about rioting and all this other stuff, so I'm only going to show you like a few more seconds of this, and then I will finish watching some of it, and I will show you some more important clips. I know nobody wants to watch this whole thing, but I highly suggest everyone watching this for themselves. This is segment 4, and this is 4 out of 4, so there's 4 parts.
Some states are now considering the feasibility of canceling in-person voting in the upcoming 2018 election. Here is the global situation as best we can determine it. Case reporting from many locations is quite unreliable as governments and public health systems have failed. As you can see, Cladex is basically everywhere. As individual country reports are largely unreliable, we are showing case counts by WHO region. We have now more than 8 million probable and confirmed cases and 3 million deaths reported worldwide. The high number of cases in some areas are due to transmission within mega cities and the collapse of some medical systems overseas. In many places, the majority of patients with severe illness are being turned away from healthcare facilities because they cannot provide care to them. These patients are largely dying at home. Some countries have deployed their military to keep order.
Largely dying at home due to the shutdown and the whole stay at home, don't go out, don't go to your friend's house. But he doesn't say that yet.
And close their borders. Immigrant and minority groups in some countries are being blamed for spreading the disease. Widespread looting and violent crackdowns have occurred in a number of countries. Several national governments have fallen due to public perception of ineffective response to the pandemic. Updated modeling indicates that a catastrophic outcome is increasingly likely unless a vaccine is deployed soon. We've asked Dr. Tara Kirksell from CDC's Office of Public Health Preparedness and Response to tell us about the prospective Cladex vaccines.
There are a number of candidate vaccines that have shown promise in animals, but development is still underway and will take many months. One candidate vaccine, made by Azalea Pharmaceuticals, appears to be effective against the disease in early clinical trials. The company is working closely with other vaccine manufacturers, HHS, and FDA to rapidly test and manufacture the vaccine. Through the use of new biotechnology approaches and extraordinary effort and cooperation, the initial batches of Azalea candidate vaccine are being produced more rapidly than any previous vaccine for a novel disease. We hope that by enlisting the help of other manufacturers, there could be enough vaccine for 80% of the US population in 6 to 9 months. Furthermore, in an unprecedented move, Azalea has committed to license the vaccine for production in other countries once it is proven. If the vaccine is approved for use, ramping up production will be a gradual process, with initial production capacity expected to be 5 million doses per month. Immunity is expected to take about a month to develop, and more than one dose may be required.
And right there, she's telling you immunity will be developed, which means they are going to give it to you and then let your immune system build up against it. So they will be giving it to you so you can get an immunity for it in your body.
Ultimately, the impact of the vaccine will be primarily determined by when it becomes available. In this slide, you can see the dramatic difference in mortality based on the time it takes to develop, produce, and dispense the vaccine. Regardless of when the vaccine is ready, delivery will ramp up gradually over several months. Therefore, we need to decide how best to allocate the limited amounts of vaccine as it rolls out. We're proposing 3 options for vaccine distribution, and the table here shows the approximate number of individuals for options 1 and 2. Option 1 prioritizes those with key societal functions in this national crisis, such as government leaders, military, CDC, NIH, healthcare workers, and those making vaccine. Prioritizing healthcare workers and scientists working on the vaccine may increase the overall number of people who can be vaccinated earlier. Prioritizing government officials would ensure continuity of government. Prioritizing critical infrastructure would help ensure the continuing function of essential services. Prioritizing critical infrastructure, however, is not straightforward. There are 16 sectors identified by DHS with tens of millions of people involved. We would have to prioritize within critical infrastructure sectors, which is very difficult. They are all critical. Option 2 prioritizes those most likely to benefit, including the elderly, young children, those with underlying health issues, and pregnant women. Prioritizing these groups, who are most likely to be severely affected by the virus, aims to save more lives. Option 3 is a lottery in which everyone has an equal chance of being selected to receive the vaccine as it becomes available.
Thank you, Dr. Sell. So, some very, very difficult decisions regarding the use of vaccine. Senator Daschle.
Before we get into the tactical questions and some of these very, very specific issues regarding distribution in particular, I think we have to go back to the strategic question. We're 5 months into this crisis, and I still can't tell you who's in charge. I think it's real troubling that we don't have a clear line of authority, a clear chain of command as we deal with this enormous problem. It's growing, it's ad hoc. We're responding without any real appreciation of what the organizational approach looks like. I think we've got to be focused on that strategic question. Who's in charge? What does the organization look like before we get into the tactics that we're going to be talking about next?
I think the president would say the president's in charge.
Is he in charge every day? Is he the one on the day-to-day managerial question? I doubt it. I mean, he's got all these other issues he's going to have to deal with. And if that's the answer, I think we're in trouble. Not because of any particular presidential ability, but just because of the nature of his role as president. Somebody has to be in charge and take day-to-day responsibility, and I don't think it can be the president. We have talked in the past about the importance of somebody of his stature, or his or her stature, and it seems to me the vice president would be that person. But regardless, somebody has to take that responsibility on a day-to-day basis with stature, with the authority, with the organizational appreciation of what is necessary to respond to this massive problem we have today.
I don't want to take us off some issue here, but just as a veteran of the period right before 9/11 and right after 9/11, I think that the majority leader's onto something. And Tom, you've been doing a fantastic job over the last number of months in this, but I know you've got a lot of other things in the world. You are not the lead health official for the country, and you've got political issues, you've got terrorism, you've got a lot. I can see how tired you are after all of this.
Thank you.
You know, after 9/11, we set up a new structure. We set up
Okay, guys, just keep in mind that this did come out in 2018. It is over 2 years old now, and I will go through and get most of the key important parts. This might end up being more than 2 videos. It might end up being 3 or 4, but I will go through it and you know, do most of it so you don't have to watch it. But it is good for people to watch because, like I said in the last video, we know what they're doing. We know it's been planned. We have Event 201. We have Agenda 21. We have Agenda 2030. And now this, which I don't understand why more people are not talking about this. You do not have to share my video or anything like that, but more people need to get the word out about this because this is something that needs to be out like Event 201. Whenever people start figuring out about Event 201, everybody knows about it now. And this right here is to a T everything just like it. And in order to figure out how they're going to play this card and how they're going to do their rituals and how this is going to actually play out, we need to finish this whole entire video ourselves and use our own discernment and our best judgment and figure it out that way, because we know how they are and they plan it and they show us what they're doing and they show their hands, and we need to look in the right places and use our own discernment and just pray, and we will be led the right way.
Congresswoman Brooks, do you have a comment?
Well, I continue to think about the riots that are happening around the country right now, and we don't have, besides the president making comments at various times, I think the leader is right that we have to have someone else that is working on this day in and day out. It could be the vice president, but I think there needs to be someone also with the medical expertise at the right hand of the president advising.
Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates, and then at the same time they're throwing in the rioting and stuff as well. They're talking about the closing of the borders, talking about the closing of the schools. If you don't want to get in depth with these, you could, I don't know, I think, I haven't went and watched the first three, but I would say that is the leading up to, you know, the very beginning of it. This says that it's like 10 months, and then at another time it talks about 18 months. So right there it goes ahead and tells you that this is going to be a problem for at least, you know, almost 2 years.
They believe that as a caring nation, we should be focused on children, the next generation. We should be focused on pregnant women. We should be focused on, you know, those who are lacking access to care in many ways. But they do not understand, because we've not done a sufficient job educating them as to what the plan is, what we're all doing day in and day out, or what you all are all doing. We're just taking the calls and meeting with people and, you know, afraid to go home, quite frankly, that there will be riots around all of our homes as to that we're not doing enough. And with this many people dying, I think, you know, and we've got members of Congress who now have it, Supreme Court Justice. I mean, we have not given it, I think, all of the attention that it deserves. I do have to leave. I have been called back to the floor. We are going to be taking an incredibly important vote on PAPA reauthorization and on we know that we have not gotten it right, and while we have one company that is appears, and we all hope and pray that they have the answer, we need to incentivize and make sure that as many companies, you know, jump into this space, because we cannot put all of our hope in this one company that is in early, you know, is showing some early promise. But I think we also have to look at, we are the #1 manufacturing country in the world, and we have to figure out how we can get all of our manufacturers in the life sciences engaged in this, because once we even get the vaccine, that doesn't mean we have enough of syringes to administer the vaccine. It doesn't mean we have enough, we know we don't have enough protective gear to continue to serve our healthcare workers. And so the whole supply chain is broken right now. We know we've got shortages, and while this is so complex, it's my sincere hope, with all of the input that I've gotten and my colleagues in the Senate started over on top of, but we're going to get it right, and I have to go take a vote on it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? I think Congresswoman Brooks began to...
Okay, so they're talking about all around the world, every border and all of this. Everyone says that the vaccine is the #1 priority and needs to be worked out before anything else, and that it should be given to the older people and the kids and pregnant women first, and for the medical workers and people in the Senate. Now, there is another part in this where it says that 2% of the population has been killed. So, okay. Then it talks about in the government that 1/3 of the government officials have been either killed or, died or incapacitated. So, we also have the 2% of the population that is dead, and we know what the 1% is, which I think could also contribute to the whole QAnon movement, where they all believe that, the deep state's going to be arrested or whatever, and that right there could be them acting like they are being arrested or that they have been killed, whatever. And that right there would also boost up the whole QAnon movement as well. I don't know that that's exactly where that's going to come in, but with everything they're doing right now, there's so many distractions and all this other stuff. Now, there is another important part of this I'm going to show you. I'm just going to jump forward and show this little piece, and after that, I'll end this, and then I'll go through and make another one, and I'll try not to make it as long as this one. Okay, so this is the original video of Pedro's where I seen this and thought it was very important, and I went and looked at it myself. You can also find the link underneath this video in this description box. So it says Trump returns 630-666, quarantine 33 days after. Now this right here is something important that y'all kind of need to hear, because everybody's talking about the 33 days till election when he was diagnosed, blah blah blah. And it also shows the clip that I want everyone to hear.
What's up, guys? Pedro V here. Quick little video, so let me clarify something real quick. Trump didn't get COVID 33 days before the election. He announced he was positive 34 days before election and began to quarantine 33 days before the election. And he started quarantine on the 2nd day of October and will be released on the 5th day at 6:30 p.m.
Which also means that he was not quarantined. He didn't go to the hospital and stay in there for 14 days.
That is 3 days. This could be subliminal for what is to come, such as in the 3 days of darkness, the manifestation. Now he will be released at 6:30 p.m. 6 and 3 switched around makes 3 6s, and that is 666. This is all scripted, folks. Everything.
Okay, I also want to point out that this is a really great channel to sub to, so everyone please go sub to this channel, because he hasn't been doing a lot of videos, but whenever he does put one out, it's very important, guys.
We see from the political realm, this clip, a simulation called Clyde X. It presents a scenario of a pandemic. This was uploaded in 2018. They talk about the president being in critical condition from the virus, as well as the vice president and the House Speaker taking over. This is very similar to Event 201. I will link it in the description. Also, in this scenario, the initial vaccine does not work.
We're going to jump ahead 10 months to July 2019.
Months into one of the worst pandemics the world's ever known, there's still no vaccine to protect people. Hard figures are impossible to come by, but the World Health Organization estimates that 150 million people have died. That's approximately 2% of the global population. For industrial countries, the death rate's a bit lower, but in many low and middle-income countries, the death rate's much higher. As many as 30% of the seriously ill have died. In the U.S., there have been an estimated 82 million severe cases and 15 million deaths. At least 5 million Clade X deaths happened because adequate medical care wasn't available. No doubt, millions of others will have died prematurely from heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and the like. The U.S., along with the rest of the world, is in its worst economic depression in history. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 90%, the GDP down 50%, and unemployment is running at 20%. Unemployment would be higher if not for the dramatic shrinkage of the available workforce due to death and disability. U.S. healthcare and health insurance systems, as we knew them, have collapsed. Health insurance companies ran out of capital and couldn't pay their bills, leaving hospitals without operating funds. In addition, most medical supplies are unavailable. Half the healthcare workforce has died, become disabled, or quit. The remaining healthcare facilities can't cope with all the patients, and consequently, death rates are soaring, both for Clade X patients and for everyone else. It was only by nationalizing the healthcare system that basic medical care is still available. The government now pays for, controls, and rations all medical care. The U.S. is in a constitutional crisis. The president remains in critical condition, and while the vice president is out of intensive care, he remains unable to assume his constitutional duties. Therefore, the Speaker of the House is the acting president. Continuity of government is a major concern. 1/3 of the U.S. Congress is dead or incapacitated, as are 2 members of the Supreme Court and senior members of the administration. Government functioning at the federal, state, and local levels has been brought to a near halt. After the failure of the first vaccine that seemed so promising 15 months ago, along with several other candidates, we now see fresh optimism. The Omega vaccine, which has finally been shown to be safe and effective, is just starting to be deployed as fast as it can be manufactured and distributed. 1/3 of Americans are expected to have access to the vaccine in the next 6 to 8 months. Global vaccine distribution and dispensing, which is an enormous undertaking in the best of circumstances, has been slowed in many locations by riots and looting at vaccination sites. Infectious disease specialists seem to agree that once 80% of the people have been vaccinated, the epidemic should be brought under control with an ultimate 20 million deaths in the U.S. These same infectious disease specialists say we're lucky because the virus is similar in some ways to common para-influenza viruses, and only 1 dose of vaccine is needed. The situation in most of the rest of the world is much worse. Massive loss of life, economic collapse, famine, and civil unrest. There's been a mass exodus from cities, adding to the spread of the disease and making vaccination programs even more difficult. The nagging question, what would have happened if we had a vaccine many months earlier? If the first vaccine had worked and started to be deployed at 6 months into the pandemic, the U.S. death toll could have been reduced from an anticipated 20 million to 6 million, with similar reductions in economic and societal consequences. On the other hand, what if years go by without a vaccine? Then, experts tell us that we could eventually see 30 to 40 million deaths in the U.S. and more than 900 million around the world, 12% of the global population. Eventually, once almost everyone's been exposed, the disease will either burn itself out or become endemic, like the dreaded childhood diseases of prior centuries. What the world will look like when it's done is still very uncertain.
Later in the video exercise, they imply that the president goes away and comes back.
Well, I would just say I think there are 5 things that I think have...
Okay, guys, I highly suggest watching this and going and clicking the link and watching that as well. I'm going to end this here, and I will make another one after I go through the video and, you know, put together pieces of it. Also, on The Simpsons, we all know that Trump is in a coffin, and they've not been wrong. Like, every time they predict something like that, we always see it come to pass. It's part of their predictive programming. It's part of them letting us know what they're going to do before they do it. It's part of their ritual. It's part of their Luciferian worshiping and everything that they do. So, I will be doing another part to this video. And please, guys, go look this up yourself, do your own research. Please share the links out. Please let other people know about this. And everyone just, I don't know. We all know it's going to get a lot worse with the fires going on, with the massive protests with everything happening around the world. We have the flooding going on right now. We have war over there. We've got a lot of stuff going on over in Italy and in France. There's a lot of things going on right now, and right to a lot of people just turning on the TV and going through the news channels, they're going to see so much stuff, it's going to scare them. The fires have been burning since August. They said there was over 8,000 and some fires just in California. Said that they was like, I think 4 million acres burned. There was like 34 deaths, I think. And all this stuff is going on. So, and right now, they're over there protesting, saying a teenage boy was thrown off a bridge. Now they are throwing red dye into the waters. And he told us that the waters would turn red like blood. So, everything is coming to pass. Everything he's been talking about, everything that's in the Bible, prophecies there. They're trying to make all this stuff come to pass themselves because they're ready. And they are supposedly talking to their Messiah. They have shut down Israel and Jerusalem. All that's going on as well. We've got the peace deal, the Abraham Accord. So everyone just pray, and it won't be much longer, and it is going to get so much worse. Trump's not going to save you. It's nothing like that. And if you are part of that, then I hope that you have a change of heart and you see the mass deception that whole movement is, because it's going to get so much worse. So God bless y'all, and stop looking down and start looking up.